Cinemas have been a sacred place to enjoy movies for over a century now. In the beginning, people were scared by watching a train arriving into a station because it felt so real to them. Silent movies were accompanied by live music, and when Méliès demonstrated that film can visualize our dreams, people soon fell in love with the magic of movies. But times are changing, and as people have more options and possibilities to watch movies than ever before, it is getting tougher for classic movie theatres. This series of documentaries will explore if the magic of cinema still exists today. Together, in each episode, we will take a closer look at Britain's oldest cinemas and find out how they managed to stay alive. Let's discover their cinema secrets. In this episode, we are going to take a look at the Rio Cinema. On the Kingsland High Street in Dalston, East London, it has been showing films for more than 100 years now. This makes the Rio one of the oldest working cinemas in the country, with a lot of stories and even more secrets.
There is no better feeling than being in here when it is absolutely packed and buzzing and everyone's super excited about the film or the filmmakers that they're engaging with. The Rio has existed since 1976, but the actual building goes back on this site. There's been a cinema showing films here since 1909.
At the beginning of the 20th century, this building was an auctioneer's house, run by the enterprising lady Clara Ludzki. However, she decided that running a cinema would be more profitable, so she converted her shop into the Kingsland Palace in 1909. Its immediate success led to shops on either side being bought up, and the architect, George Coles, was commissioned to design a new, bigger, single-screen cinema. Construction began in 1913, and the Kingsland Empire opened in 1915.
And then, obviously, film developed, the talkies came around in 1929, and around about 1930, some of the big Art Deco cinemas started to appear in the area. So just a few hundred yards up the road, we had the ABC Savoy, and just down the road on Dalston Junction, there was a very big modern Odeon. So suddenly the Kingsland Empire was looking rather dated.
Within the shell of the original building, the cinema was refurbished and given an Art Deco makeover by cult architect F.E. Bromwich in 1937. It was then renamed the Classic Cinema. It was given an extraordinary auditorium with a unique design from outside and inside, which has basically stayed intact until today. Particularly beautiful is the Art Deco ceiling, which is the reason a lot of people come here. Unusually for the time being an Art Deco cinema, it was small in scale, with 500 seats compared to the Odeon or ABC, which have more than 2,000 seats.
And the reason that those cinemas have long since gone, the Odeon was closed and demolished in the late 60s, and the ABC carried on until 1983 when it closed, showing Al Pacino and Scarface, because it was just uneconomic to run a building of that size. And so the Classic, by that point, was the only remaining cinema in Hackney for a borough that at one point I think it had up to about 26 different cinemas.
By the mid-70s, the cinema was struggling, so the owners tried a lot of different incarnations. It had been a cartoon cinema, a foreign language cinema, and it had also been a Tadler Club, showing uncensored porn films with live acts on stage, which is why they still have the stage there today. But all of those proved not to be long-term successes, so in 1976, the owners were threatening to close the building and convert it into a bingo hall. Luckily, at the time, a group of enterprisers running a bookshop on the road, called Centerprise, became aware of that.
So they seized the opportunity to take over the cinema, and which they did in 1976, forming London's first community cinema. In 1979, it became a charity, and it is London's oldest community cinema now. So it's 40 years as the Rio, and in 2019 it will be the 40th anniversary of it actually being a not-for-profit charity.
Today, the Rio very much depends on the people of the community and area. Being located in Dalston, a diverse and changing part of London, the cinema constantly needs to have a feeling for what people want to see and what will make them come to the Rio.
Very hard to make a one-screen cinema work. So in any given week, you've probably got like 10 new films opening, and you've got big blockbusters all the time. So there is a temptation for business needs to show that.
Instead of giving in to this temptation, the Rio does not want to go into the mainstream of other cinemas. They are focusing on independent filmmakers and show movies that might not attract as big an audience as big productions, but it certainly attracts the audience that loves the Rio and its experience. Another part of Rio's identity is preserving the original character of cinema. Besides the digital one, you can still find a projector from the 70s in the Rio's projection room, which is still being used for occasional screenings. The room is also filled with old film rolls that document the passion for the art of cinema, especially when everything in the business of cinemas is becoming more digital every day. But of course, an old projector can't convince younger viewers to fill the cinema, especially not in times when they have so many options to consume entertainment. Why would they come?
Teenagers like shopping malls, they like multiplex experience. That's very much what they're about. When you're 14, 15 years old, going to an independent cinema is not cool in any way whatsoever. But we are here when they get to 18 and they suddenly develop an interest in film. And the great thing is, more people are watching VOD channels like Netflix, but it's getting them really excited about film and really interested in film. So it keeps film alive. So when there are great films that people engage with, then people will come here.
By now you must think we have learned everything there is to know about this old lady in the cinema business. But that is not quite true. What if I told you there was more to the Rio than the bare eye can see? We have learned that in order to build the Art Deco cinema we know today, the original Kingsland Palace from 1915 was disrupted. Well, not exactly. Above the auditorium, hidden from the audience, the original ceiling and upper part of Clara Lutzki's palace still exists. Only accessible over the roof, the Rio basically contains two cinemas in one, which London Heritage says is almost unique. And also underneath the Rio, there is yet more to discover. The large basement under the cinema was used for many different reasons throughout history.
The building is absolutely enormous and has a very large basement, which has had many interesting uses over the years, from an air raid shelter for Zeppelin raids in the First World War, that again as an air raid shelter in the Second World War, a recording studio for female and women-only bands in the 1980s. It was a photographic studio and dark room for photographic groups in the 1980s who recorded Rio life, and it was shown here on the screen before films.
Now the basement is used by a pop-up bar. Every spot is filled with film posters and props that endured its long existence, and you can certainly feel that these walls have a lot of stories to tell. Film enthusiasts and just normal customers come together almost every night during the week and give it life. But how does the Rio plan to ensure its future?
What we want to do is put a second auditorium down there. That means that a lot of the interesting stuff that we currently can't accommodate, and we get a lot of requests in terms of festivals or filmmaker events, we can accommodate that by having an additional screen in the basement, and that means that the main auditorium stays completely intact, which is exactly the way it should be because it's a Grade 2 listed building.
Even after 100 years, the Rio has not had enough and is still trying to defend its position amongst the oldest cinemas in London. However, the Rio's best insurance is the support from the community.
Whenever you talk to people in the area, they will say, I came here as a kid, I came here to school screenings, I came here on Saturday morning, I came with my family, I came here as a teenager on dates, came here then to watch movies as an adult, and a lot of people then I come here to bring my family here with my kids.
With its vibrant history, the Rio has a lot more to offer than just a regular cinema. The old and well-preserved building contains a whole century of cinema secrets. In order to survive another 100 years, it will be an interesting development for the Rio adjusting to current needs of the audience without giving up its individual character. This was our first entry into the fascinating world of cinemas in the UK, but there is so much more left to explore. For the next episode, we are going to visit the Electric Cinema. It is also one of the oldest cinemas in London, and today one of the best cinemas in the world. However, it has a dark secret. In the 1940s, a serial killer called John Christine was an employee at the Electric. Seems unbelievable? Join us next time.